Hi everyone, it's Vanessa. So welcome back to the Adulting as a Grad Student video series. And so today we are getting advice for moving from Kyndall. So if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kyndall Nicholas. I'm a first year in the neuroscience graduate group. And one of my favorite things to do is binge watch movies.
Yay. And so where are you coming from, or where did you come from?
Yeah, I'm coming from Baltimore, Maryland, about 90 minutes away from the campus.
Great. And so for our first question for the series, so we're looking at for you to tell us about the timeline of your move. And so for the first question, it would be, how far out did you start looking for apartments?
Yes, so I started looking very early, literally the first day I got my acceptance into Penn. Basically, I got accepted, or like knowledge of my acceptance, February 20th. I started looking February 20th, and I got on apps like Zillow and other apps similar to that, where I put in my budget and I put in what I was looking for. So I would say like washer and dryer, AC unit, things of that nature. It gave me a bunch of list of places, and basically I booked an appointment to see them on March 13th and March 14th, which was a weekend, for 2 days. I would say don't book for more than 2 or 3 days. 2 or 3 a day. And I walked around in those places, and most of them were looking for starting in June. So the way that they told me was, if you want to start living in June, go around 2.5 months from that when you start looking. So if you wanted to do July, then you start looking in April. And that helped me figure out when I wanted to move and if I started too early or too late. But for my program, they had an option to start rotating in June, which is why I started in March. And that was the rationale behind that.
That's perfect. Yeah, I remember that for my move, I wanted an August 1st move-in date, and I came for a weekend to look at apartments. Again, the same thing that you did, had a few each day for the weekend. And even coming and looking in May was actually a little bit too early. There's a very fast turnaround in Philly to look for apartments. And so, yeah, usually you only need 2 months before moving, which might cause some anxiety in some people because you want to know where you're going to live, with enough time. But that's just the nature of it.
Yeah, I would definitely say make a list of places. You never know. It doesn't, just because it's on the market earlier than you want it to be, that doesn't mean that it won't be on the market later also. So just make a list of places and start figuring out the areas that you want to live, and that will help you calm your anxiety.
Yeah. All right. And so for our next question, so when did you actually start contacting property owners?
So I started contacting property owners about a week before the weekend that I wanted to come. So I said that we toured March 13th, March 14th. And so we contacted them around March 6th, March 7th. But what turned out to happen was they were ready to tour us March 6th and March 7th.
Right, the same day.
Literally the same day. So I would say if you have an idea of when you want to tour, just wait maybe 1-2 days before then. There's no pressure, and it can also help you figure out what is available and what isn't. So that was super helpful to know that I didn't have to plan too far in advance to try to tour a place I liked.
Yeah, for me, I was flying, and so I feel like I had a list of apartments that I was interested in and just kept checking in, kind of seeing, if they were still available and stuff. And then once it got closer, I made the appointments and said this is a weekend that I'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super helpful just to keep you on track.
Yeah. And so when did you finalize your living situation?
So I finalized in April 21st. So about a month after I toured. This was my first apartment ever. So I did not know the process in trying to solidify an apartment. So that took a little bit longer for the paperwork. But basically I didn't have any issues in solidifying my apartment. And it was also a great time because then I was able to spend all of May getting my stuff together for my move in June. It wasn't stressful at all, and the people that own these apartments are really nice and really helpful if you have any questions.
All right, and can you elaborate a little bit in that month-long process of you, deciding and contacting them, kind of what went on during that time? What type of paperwork did they have you sign, or forms?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things was a credit score. Again, this was my first apartment. I did not know how to even get a credit score, who to go to. So I did some research on the like companies that can get that for you or give them a credit report. Depending on who's doing the apartment, they'll actually do the credit report for you. You just have to pay a fee for them to do it, or you can do it yourself and give them the credit report. So that was one of the things I had to turn in. And then also they will give you a lease if they approve. And so I had to read over the lease, which was very long, and I was very confused with some of what the things meant, talking about keys or what was allowed, what wasn't allowed. So that took some time just because it's a long contract, and it was my first official contract ever.
I know, it's pretty nerve-wracking.
Yes, I was like, I hope I don't mess up, like sign the wrong thing. So it was pretty much those two things. It was just time consuming because I've never done it before. But it worked out because it helped me learn what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I also had to become comfortable asking questions about literally adulting.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. That brings back so many memories of me being like, what is this document thing that you have sent me that I need to sign away my life?
Yes. It's so nerve-wracking because it's like a very official contract, right? And then one of the other things that I forgot to mention is they start telling you how much money you need to put down as a security deposit or first month's rent, last month's rent. I didn't know if this was normal or if I was getting scammed. So I had to ask my parents about that, try to get that money together. And actually for us, we weren't, for like the people I live with, me and my roommates, we weren't able to get all the money together in time. So we actually contacted them and asked if we can turn bits of the money in before on a different schedule, but before we moved in. Okay. And they were very open about that. They were like, that's fine. Like, that works for us as long as all the money is in before you try to come get your key. So that was one of the things that we negotiated. So I would say that if you don't think you can get all your money in time, don't be afraid to ask. They might be very open to it.
That's awesome. That's great advice, actually, because a lot of students don't know that it's a lot of money you have to put up front. And so kind of thinking of like how to save for that and, you know, when to start saving, because you do have to pay basically 3 months rent at one time, which is, you know, pretty crazy.
Yes.
Especially for someone, at least for me, you know, and you just said that you had never, you know, gotten an apartment either.
Yeah, it was overwhelming. That's why I thought I was being scammed, because I was like, this is a lot of money for a short amount of time. But they were like very open with us, and they also knew that this was our first apartment. So we didn't have this type of money saved up. We weren't prepared to have this type of money saved up. And so we were able to spread that out, which was super helpful for someone who does not have a lot of money.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. And so when you moved, I have two questions. So one is, did you bring stuff from Maryland since you were pretty close and you were able to drive, or did you just buy everything here? And then my second question is, what was the most surprising moving expense?
Yes. So it was a bit of mixture for your first question. It was a mixture of me bringing stuff and me absolutely having nothing. So for example, the kitchen, I did not have anything for the kitchen. I did not have silverware. I did not have bowls. I did not have pans and pots. And that might have been my most surprising expense, because I was like, why does a knife cost this much?
Right.
But like, I need a sharp knife to cut vegetables and stuff. So that was extremely like eye-opening to adulting, because I just think I took my parents' silverware and pots and stuff for granted, and like, thank God for my parents.
I feel that.
Yeah, so that was like, that kind of taps into your second question, but I did bring stuff from home because I was so close. So me and my parents packed as much stuff as we could into the car, like our two cars, my car and their car, and brought up stuff. And then we did a second trip because I was trying to avoid the U-Haul prices.
Right.
The U-Haul prices, depending on how much stuff you have, can be pretty expensive. And then also movers is another thing, like carrying heavy things. So the way I broke it up was, for example, I got a bed frame that was not built. So it was in a box. I was able to take it in and build there. But when I got like a dresser to like with drawers, I actually paid to have it delivered. So I ordered it new, paid to have it delivered, and paid the extra price for them to carry it up the stairs and put it in my room, because that was just like a lot. So I kind of laid out what expenses made the most sense for me. And I had that privilege because I lived so close and we had cars to drive. So that is a little different. but I had to definitely lay out what was worth it because, like I said, I did not know a pot and pan could be so expensive, but like a girl's got to eat.
Yes. And also the different sizes of pans was also something I didn't appreciate until I started cooking. And I'm like, oh, wait, I need something a little bit bigger, something smaller.
Yeah, that was a lot. And then also things that can actually go into the oven. Like that's a whole different thing. So I was like, wow, I literally took everything in my house for granted and I will never do that again.
Yeah. All right. And so my next question is, why did you choose the neighborhood that you chose? If you can tell us a little bit of, where you're living, and then why you chose that neighborhood in particular.
Yes, so there's many reasons why we chose the neighborhood. One of the things is me and my other roommates, we all have cars. And so it was very important to find a place where we could park easily. Also on my street, not only is there easy parking, but it's free parking. We didn't have to worry about getting a permit because if you want to bring your car and your street needs a permit, then you have to go through an entire process of registering your car to Pennsylvania.
Right.
It's extremely lengthy, but luckily I didn't have to do that because I had free street parking and lots of it. Another reason I chose my area is I wanted to go into an area where I felt like I lived in Philly. So Penn is a large campus. There's many different neighborhoods around it. Some neighborhoods, you can tell that it's like mainly people that live or work and go to school at Penn. And then there's other neighborhoods where you feel like you're really in the city, closer to downtown. And that's kind of what I wanted to feel like. I wanted to have the ability to leave campus and felt like I was literally living somewhere else. So that's another reason why I chose where I live. I get to see children from different places. I get to see different types of walks of life and just have conversations with different people. And that was really important to me. And then the last reason why I chose where I live is because it's like still being built, which meant that it was a lot cheaper than other places that have already been established and have like their rents set. Right. So this was like, this allowed me to get a cheaper place my first year and then also still live in the city, be close, have free street parking, not have to pay for a permit. It just all seemed perfect for me. And so where I live, which I didn't mention, was Grad Hospital, Grace Ferry area. There's, even though we have cars, it's also great for people who just don't have cars and can walk as well. You can walk, you can bike, all of these modes of transportation work for this area.
Yes, I live in that area and I walk, so it's perfect.
Yeah. I take walks too sometimes when I don't want to drive. It's really a great place to feel like you're in the city, have a Penn community, and get wherever you need to go. Yeah.
All right. And so for our last question, just one final piece of advice that you would give to someone, student that's watching this, that is about to go into their journey of this moving to grad school.
Yes. So one piece of advice that I would have told my old self also is it's okay to ask questions and it's okay to not know what you're doing. Right. But there's a whole Penn community who has done this before who can literally help you. I think that I was kind of nervous and scared to reach out to people. So that's kind of why it took me a long process to even sign my lease, right? Because I didn't know whether these things were normal, that I was talking about the money deposits. I didn't know what these areas really looked like, which is why I set my things, like my appointments in advance so early. It was just so many questions I had, but I went about it on my own and tried to figure out myself. So I wish that I would have reached out to more senior students in the program or just in Penn in general to ask them about what I should do, what I should expect, when to start, and things of that nature. That would have been very helpful and probably calmed my anxiety down just a little bit. Yeah, especially now that you're a first year, I'm sure you're like, I would give advice to all the students that would contact me. Yes, I would totally do that. Like if everyone, I don't care who's reaching out to me, you have questions, I would totally do that because I just think that living in a city, one of the things that I've noticed is it's changing rapidly. There's an apartment building out of nowhere. You're like, when did that get there? Oh my God, yes, so quickly. Yes, so there's literally nothing static about the area. And so even though you might have looked something up, it might be totally different in a week. And so that's why I feel like if I would have started building a relationship or started reaching out to people earlier, then maybe I wouldn't have been so stressed when something I saw online didn't match what I saw in person. Right. Well, thank you so much, Kyndall, for all the great advice. Yes, of course. And if you have any questions, you can reach out. Great. Thank you.